All right, let's talk about intuition in a busy life. So, most people think that intuition needs like quiet with the candles and stillness, and I have to be focused and to dip into it. And while that can be true in some cases, and it can help, it's not how intuition usually comes to us in real life. Because in real life is just, it's loud, it's full, it's busy, it's moving fast. Um, and intuition doesn't wait for us to calm down, light the incense, light some candles, and dip in. It actually shows up and meets us where we're at. I got a frog in my throat today. I want to tell you a story about how penicillin was discovered, because this is going to demonstrate this point very well. So, in 1928, Alexander Fleming was an overworked scientist. His lab was busy, it was cluttered, and just basically chaotic. He was juggling multiple projects, people were moving in and about, um, stuff was stacked up everywhere. Well, he decided he was going to go on vacation. Before leaving for vacation, he accidentally left some petri dishes uncovered on his workbench. Well, when he came back weeks later, they're still there. And most scientists would have just thrown them away immediately. They were contaminated, mold had grown on them. The experiment was basically ruined. But something inside of him in that moment made him pause. Instead of reacting automatically and just chunking it and cleaning up and getting on his to do list, he noticed something subtle. Around the mold, um, bacteria had stopped growing. So that moment didn't come from a quiet meditation or deep breaths and dipping in. It came from chaos, but it came from him paying attention during the chaos. He could have just cleaned up his mess and moved on and got on his to do list. I mean, that was the logical thing to do. But what he did demonstrates how we can tap into that intuition even in our busy lives. He stayed curious and he stayed aware. So, this little pause led to the discovery of penicillin. That's one of the biggest breakthroughs in medical history. And it didn't come from planning and it didn't come from silence. It came from awareness in chaos, um, something that we can all do even if we're busy. So, one of the biggest things that most people think about intuition is that it arrives in a booming voice or a surefire feeling. And while it can do that sometimes, that's not always how it acts. Um, Sometimes it's just a pause in you, or a delay, maybe an ease or a subtle resistance. Maybe there's a change in timing or just a knowing or a gut feeling. Sometimes it can just be you just hearing that little quiet voice in your head that's bringing a thought forward. Maybe it just says, hang on, look over here. So intuition is very natural, and intuition doesn't pop in like an interruption. It's more of our natural flow. We're built to be intuitive. So if you're waiting to hear a loud voice or feel a loud or obvious feeling, then you might miss it because oftentimes it's just so much more subtle than that. Intuition in a busy life can look like taking a different route home unexpectedly. And then you later realize why. Or maybe it's you not quite sending that text message you were going to send and then find out that timing mattered. Or maybe it's just you have a knowing and you just feel the answer before your brain has time to reason it out. My favorite way that it peaks up in a chaotic life is when you suddenly remember something important at the exact moment that you need it. Now, none of that feels magical in any way. It actually just kind of feels natural. It feels normal. And so that's why it's often overlooked and why it gets missed. Um, when we miss intuition, it's a lot of times it's because we expect it to just sound a little bit different. Um, but it doesn't. Intuition doesn't shout over your thoughts. It works with them. Now, we can overthink and we can let the head chatter run a little bit busy, but underneath it all, it will speak through other ways too, such as, like we just talked about, timing, um, simplification or redirection, um, or just a sense of relief, or even a sense of tension will tell you you've got to listen to those subtle tweaks that you're being told. Maybe you feel lighter after a decision that matters, or maybe something just feels way too complicated or more complicated than it has to be. Both of those things matter. Both of those are examples of your intuition peeking through. Even in my work life, recently I had something where I needed to make a decision, and I had a decision that I thought I wanted to make, but something just didn't feel right. And so I kind of drug my feet a little bit. Um, and then later it popped up again where I had to make the decision. But this time, information had changed, things had changed, and um, it was actually pretty good that I kind of held back and waited, because now with this new information that came forward, I made a better decision. So that little delay or pause or slow or whatever sometimes tells us to hang on. Now, your busyness does not block your intuition. Um, m- there's a lot of people that think that they're too busy or too logical to be intuitive. That they're just handling it through thinking or through logic. But intuition and logic can both coexist. I often say it's like salt and pepper. Both are different seasonings, but they still flavor your food. So they do coexist. Being busy or logical doesn't block your intuition from flowing. What blocks me for when my intuition is flowing is when I try to force it. When I'm when I'm feeling like I need an answer now and I'm trying to force it. But when I stop demanding answers and just stay aware, then intuition seems to find its way in. Um, Sometimes the intuitive moment is not a specific answer that you expected. Maybe it's going to be more like guidance or a nudge or direction away from something or down a different path that you didn't expect. So just pay attention that sometimes the answers aren't going to always be what you expect. And those are the good ones. Those are the ones when you get on the other side of them, you're like, whoa, that was pretty amazing. So you don't really need to add anything to your life um, for intuition. You're already built for it. Being a human, it flows through us. Our senses are already there. We just need to pay attention or just notice it more. When you start noticing it more and acting on it, then it's going to start popping in a little bit bigger and a little more frequently. You just have to notice what's already happening to you because I guarantee you things are happening. Um, Examples like feeling at ease or feeling a little bit of resistance or maybe even some clarity after action. Those are all examples. I had a friend today, well, actually, not today, a couple of days ago, that came and talked to me about a decision that she had to make. Well, I know what I want for her, but I'm not quite sure what she wants for herself. And so we just decided to take a moment and try to bring that intuition out. And basically, what we did is we just did a quick little simple wham bam, thank you, ma'am exercise on how it feels in the body. So, decision A or decision B. When I say decision A, where do you feel it in your body? And then when I say decision B, where do you feel it in your body? Well, when I talked about decision A for her, she could feel it in her head. At first she said, "I just don't really feel anything." And that's pretty normal. When your mind is cluttered, you got some emotions and you have some things, it's kind of normal to say, "I just can't feel anything." But then she says, "But no, I think I do. I do. I feel it in my head." Where do you feel decision B? And she could feel that in her chest, and her chest just felt it felt better. It gave her a signal that decision B was aligning with what she really wanted. And you can do that on a daily basis with anything, is just notice, because intuition, besides timing and besides synchronicity, will also show up quite often in the body. So let's try that out right now. You don't really have to change anything right now. So if there's noise around you, great, let it be there. If your mind is busy, let it be chaotic, let it be busy. We're not fixing anything. We're working with the flow that we're in right now. So now I want you to place your hand anywhere that feels natural. It doesn't matter. You could put it on your head, you can put it on your chest, your stomach, your thighs, just someplace where it feels natural and it feels good. I personally like to put my hands on my chest. Um, me personally, I feel a lot of um, lightness and I feel direction that comes through my chest. My anxiety, I tend to hold in my belly, in my stomach. And so you may be a little bit different. You may feel answers in your stomach and feel tightness or anxiety in your chest. So you need to just place your hands where it feels natural. And then I just want you to notice the contact. Notice how it feels. Um, Notice that it's just there for a brief moment. Okay. And then think of one small decision that you're currently making. Nothing big, just something ordinary, like a decision about a conversation or a question you have at work or something that you've been avoiding. Just think about that for a moment. All right. So, without thinking it through, when you think about your decision, notice which option feels slightly lighter in your body. Um, doesn't need to be like this big dramatic change or feel in your body. It doesn't need to be something like, whoa, I felt tingles everywhere. No, it doesn't have to be dramatic. Just notice what option feels lighter in your body. Now, if you feel no changes, that's information too. Maybe you need to rethink about your options, or maybe just give it a few minutes and just see where you feel just very light changes. So just recognize it. Don't overthink. Don't think at all. Just notice your body where it feels. So Intuition is working in a busy moment. There's no silence, no clearing of the mind. You're just noticing. You're just noticing. It's just awareness. So let's take that just a little step further. You can also notice where things in your life feel heavier than they need to be right now. So, do you have something that you have in your life that's sitting on you that's heavier than it should be? Um, you'll notice all that coming through the body. That's how intuition works. So you can do this simple little exercise. A lot of times you'll see me put my hands on my chest. You can do it in traffic. You can do it at the line at the grocery store. You can do it in the middle of a hard day. You can still be busy and take a moment. Something that I always like to explain to folks is a term that I learned as an old ER nurse in the ER. Fast is slow and slow is fast. If I'm moving so quickly and reacting without taking a moment and going through it calmly, I'm going to make mistakes. So even in the chaos, you can take just a brief moment and think about where you feel in this, where you feel what's going on in your body. So intuition doesn't really require so much you stopping, taking breaths, and going, that's all good, but it's not required. You're built in with it. It just requires you to notice. It just requires a little bit of awareness. So if you're in a season of life where life is busy, 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 crazy, and chaotic, it's okay. It's okay. That doesn't mean that you're disconnected. It just means that your intuition is going to speak to you a little bit differently than it speaks to you when you're not in a chaotic season. You're not blocking anything. It's already working quietly in the background. I always say intuition is like a light. You don't have to flip the switch on. The switch is already on. You just have to notice the light. So, in this coming week, take a little gander at timing, at synchronicity. Notice those pauses. Notice the sensation you feel in your body when you're making decisions. That's all part of being magical and using your intuition in those chaotic moments. No thinking, just notice them. And then also, to another good thing is to be aware of is that intuition usually pops in pretty fast. So if something popped in pretty quick, it felt good in the body, but then you start thinking about how it's possibly wrong, that is just normal overthinking. You don't have to go there. Just notice what came in pretty quick. It came in quick, it came in the body, and it's calm. Intuition does not speak to you like a bully. Intuition doesn't tell you, you better do this or that. Intuition just is strictly just straight up information. That's all it is. If you, in the chaos, start finding that you hear some head chatter that's like something a bully would say, that's just head chatter. That's just head chatter. That is not intuition. Intuition is not chocked full of fear. It's just a quiet, simple, quick message that doesn't really explain anything, that usually lands in your body, and it just seems to fall in place. So let's see if we've got any questions out there. I don't see any questions right now. So notice the timing, notice what feels easier. Don't try to force the clarity. Don't overthink it. Just let it come in and notice what intuitive hits you get in the week. As a matter of fact, something that would build your confidence is notice when you need to call somebody or ask somebody else about something. Before you call them, go ahead and notice what your intuition is telling you. Then go ahead and pick up the phone, give them a call, and see if your intuition was right. Build that confidence. So just notice the timing, notice the feelings, notice the pauses. Take a moment, enjoy it in the chaos. And as always, go be magical this week.